What's up? Welcome back to your...
Wow. Nice.
We're going to do that again. What's up? Welcome back to You're All Doomed, where we slice and dice our way through Friday the 13th, the final chapter, 13 minutes at a time. I am your host, Brian.
I'm Balls of Steel Greg.
This chunk begins with Ted getting an up-close view of his little vintage porno flick and ends with Jason giving Tommy a hug.
Aww.
Ted practically has his face pressed against the movie screen and, getting a close-up look of this, naked woman, and he's like, so do you want to give the old teddy bear a kiss?
And he's even like flicking it with his finger like he's trying to flick her nipple or something. It's freaky.
Yeah. But as he gets close to the screen, the film reel breaks, and so he looks back at the projector to try to figure out what's going on, but he can't really see because the light from the projector is kind of blinding him. And he figures it's Jimmy, but it's not. And but before he can figure that out, there's a butcher knife that breaks through the movie screen and stabs Ted in the back of the skull.
Yeah, boom. My biggest question here, though, is how on earth did Jason get behind the screen without being noticed? He would have had to get into the room while Ted was watching the porno movie, because Ted only turned around to look at the broken film for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, and we have to figure that Jason was the one responsible for breaking the film.
Exactly.
So he had to distract him by breaking the film.
Did he have like a throwing star or something? I mean, what on earth did he do to break the film and then be hidden behind the screen?
Yeah, we might be thinking about it too much, but you're right. Jason has shown that he can get around pretty quickly, but that's very quickly because he's doing it right in front of someone. He's basically walking around the couch.
Right. It's super quick and it's super stealthy. So, Jason may have ninja tendencies that we are previously unaware of.
Yeah.
It's a fairly gruesome kill in the sense that Ted then kind of slumps to the floor and tears the screen as he drags the knife down with him. So he's tearing the screen as he goes, leaving a blood trail. And it's not graphic in the sense that we're seeing, skull and brain, but it's evocative. Ted was played by an actor named Lawrence Monason, who rose to prominence a couple of years earlier with a role in The Last American Virgin. But more importantly for me, he played Rocky Dennis's pal in Mask, which was the first movie that put Laura Dern on my map, which was then solidified by Jurassic Park.
Wasn't she blind in that movie?
Yes, and she struck up a relationship with Rocky until her parents got a look at him, and they kind of...
That's right, because she couldn't tell what he looked like. And
right, she could see his inner beauty, whereas her parents were concerned by his disfigurement. Lawrence Monason also had a role in The Band Played On, and was yet another alumnus of Different Strokes.
Of course he was.
Not a huge acting footprint since his last appearance on an episode of CSI New York in 2010.
Yeah, he was actually nominated for a Cable Ace Award for that performance in And the Band Played On, along with Richard Gere and Ian McKellen. It was only a one-scene performance, but it must have made a big enough impact for him to be nominated for an award.
I feel like we should talk about Richard Gere more this season.
We could try. I think this is the third reference that we've dug up.
So with Ted's demise, we cut back upstairs to Doug and Sarah finishing up in the shower, and she puts on a towel while she's still in the shower stall with the water running. So that seems like a blatant ploy to avoid the actor having to appear naked, which, fine. If she didn't want to do nudity, that's great, but it's not what I would do when I'm getting out of the shower. I would get out of the stall first.
I love how after this, probably uninspired sex session, Doug is like, I think I'm in heaven. And Sarah responds, I think I'm in love.
Ooh,
my
boy.
first reaction is, run away, run away.
Yeah, she's putting way too much meaning into this act of losing her virginity. So I feel like Doug may have a pretty rough road ahead of him. She's probably already going to call her folks to have him come over and meet her parents and all this kind of stuff. And, I get that it's a big deal for her, but yikes.
The boring ass sex session with Doug requires Sarah to go to the bedroom to dry her hair, and Doug is singing in the shower, and the song he's singing is Tangerine by Jimmy Dorsey. It hit the Billboard charts in 1942. It was there for 15 weeks, including 6 weeks at number one. And it was also featured in the background of a scene from Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, which I don't remember, but
I'll be darned.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I presume that the shower was mainly foreplay, as you might expect, but that Sarah was just kind of ramping up for the real night of passion ahead of them, and so that's why she went down to the bedroom to just make final preparations before re-entry.
Well, if her saying "I think I'm in love" is her response to foreplay, then Doug really needs to run away.
Yeah, she definitely needs to take a chill pill on this. I get that it's a young woman's first experience with being penetrated, but it's just like, come on. I mean,
you say it like it's like you're putting it delicately.
I mean, what's it going to be like when he, for lack of a better word, shoves his cock up her ass?
Right. Or when he tries to finger her asshole for the first time.
After, if she says, "I think I'm in love" after a shower session, what's she going to say after a rim job? For God's sake.
Doug's singing is interrupted when he hears someone outside the shower, and he figures it's Paul. And for some reason, he tries to tempt Paul to join him in the shower by pretending to drop the soap.
Yeah, there's a gay love joke going on. So that makes me think that not only is he Paul's Chewbacca, but he might also be a little more. Which is fine, like if that's their bond, that's great. But it's weird that he's going with a gay love joke.
And it would explain why they're both sitting in the front seat with each other. They were the closest,
right? Possibly holding hands. Yep. Doug had those remarkably roomy shorts that he was sporting earlier. But this gay love joke infuriates the person on the other side of the frosted glass because it's none other than Jason.
And he crushes Doug's head against the back of the shower wall, just basically just destroying his skull.
Yeah, it's unbelievably awesome. It's unbelievably brutal. We get a really fantastic, quick insert shot of Jason in the hockey mask, close up, looking absolutely enraged, before it cuts back to a really, really nice fake head effect of Jason's palm crushing into the bridge of Doug's nose and just absolutely flattening his skull. It's a great, great kill. Shower scenes always make one think of the movie Psycho, which was crafted with artful editing that kind of makes you think you're seeing more than you really are, and you never actually see the knife plunging into Janet Leigh's body, and it's a masterpiece of your imagination filling in for you. But this instead goes for the gusto, and you just see this boy's head be absolutely obliterated. Doug was played by an actor named Peter Barton, who earlier in his career beat out Tom Cruise for the lead role in a TV series on NBC called The Powers of Matthew Starr. I actually remember seeing this in reruns over a summer, the summer after it originally aired, and that was the first place I ever saw Louis Gossett Jr., who was also the star of An Officer and a Gentleman. Amy Steele from Part 2, who played Ginny, was also in this movie, and in fact, she was the reason that Peter Barton wound up in a Friday the 13th movie. He'd kind of cooled on acting after being injured by a stunt on the TV series, and then had done a small role in a Linda Blair horror movie called Hell Night, and then Amy Steele talked him into this, so it kind of worked out for him. The Powers of Matthew Starr, incidentally, was created by Steven D'Souza, who then would go on to write Die Hard and direct Street Fighter and many other action movie staples of the late 80s and 90s.
I love the premise of the show, which is, the adventures of a high school student who is actually a superpowered alien prince from another world. So it's basically like He-Man on Earth.
Yeah, it was. I remember it being really cheesy, but that was the era when whatever happened to be on one of the three main channels, you pretty much watched. And so I remember one summer being on vacation with my family, and they all went out to dinner at a restaurant I didn't like, and I was probably 8 or 9, but I was old enough to be allowed to stay back at the condo by myself and turn on the TV, and this show was on, and I watched part of it. So I mean, when I saw this movie for the first time a couple years later, I'm like, hey, it's that Powers of Matthew Starr guy. One little interesting tidbit: he's still working in lots of TV and soap operas, but he wound up inheriting a substantial sum of money from a fan that he'd never actually met. This guy was just a fan of the Matthew Starr series, apparently, and left Peter Barton and one other actor half of his estate. So my question to you, Brian, is, barring Amy Steele, because I think she would be both of our first answers, what actor from the Friday the 13th series would you leave your estate to upon your death?
It's got to be Kevin Bacon, because he could use the money to go to meteorology
the whole Bernie
school.
Madoff problem.
Well, I just think he could, he obviously has an interest in weather, and so he could maybe use the money to go to
Good
meteorologist school and put the money to good use.
Excellent answer. I love it.
Peter Barton also starred as Dr. Scott Granger on The Young and the Restless in the early 1990s, and he returned for a few episodes in 2005, and I would love to know the premise of his return. I'm sure he was like, the long-lost twin brother, or, something like that is usually the case in a soap opera. But we also mentioned earlier how Bonnie Hellman, who was the hitchhiker in this movie, was on a soap called Sunset Beach in the late 90s, and as was Peter Barton. Back in the bedroom, Sarah's done drying her hair, and even though it looks exactly the same as it did when she stepped out of the shower, she heads back down the hall toward the bathroom.
Yeah, she's now ready to go, so she wants Doug to hurry up and finish washing his hair.
Except when she opens the bathroom door, she sees Doug's face impaled on the broken glass of the shower door. Understandably, she freaks out and runs downstairs.
Yeah, she runs downstairs yelling, "Sam! Sam!" which I found utterly heartbreaking. Like, even on this night where one could argue she's becoming a woman, she still kind of, in a childlike fashion, is clinging to her best friend to save her, little knowing that Sam has been dead now for, at least a half an hour, probably longer. So it's pretty tragic when she reaches the front door, and before she can even open it, boom, she gets a double-bladed axe to the chest through the door.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong hit. To be able to go through the door and still have enough force to penetrate her chest, there's some aggression behind that swing.
Yeah, I mean it splinters the door. So the force that Jason had to use, he timed it perfectly. It's like he knew someone was going to come, running downstairs at top speed, and he timed it just so that as soon as she reached the door, kapow! It's an explosive kill.
So R.I.P. Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah was played by Barbara Howard, who appeared on the TV drama Falcon Crest, had an appearance on Silver Spoons, did quite a bit of TV, but is now actually a psychotherapist in Schaumburg, Illinois, which is
no kidding,
not too far from where we sit as we record this. She focuses on a therapy process called IFS, Internal Family Systems Model, which, according to the website selfleadership.org, offers a clear, non-pathologizing, and empowering method of understanding human problems, as well as an innovative and enriching philosophy of practice that invites both therapist and client to enter into a transformational relationship in which healing can occur.
And also how to fall in love after giving someone a hand job.
Indeed. So I feel like this segment really kicks off hot. We've had 3 epic kills in 4 minutes. So I mean, this right here is, when I think of a Friday the 13th movie, this is what I think of. This is Jason Voorhees in a hockey mask. He's not sneaking around at this point. He's a juggernaut of fury and just going to town.
there's a really abrupt cut. I mean, Sarah's dead body's barely hit the floor when we suddenly cut to Tommy Jarvis slowly making his way down the stairs. And the way it's cut, it almost seems like it's part of the same location in the same scene. And so it feels like he's almost going downstairs to discover Sarah's body, but that's not the case at all. We're in a completely different location. We're at the Jarvis house, and he's slowly going down the stairs because he hears a noise coming from outside. Now, whether it's related to what's going on at the party house, we have no idea, but he's heading downstairs nonetheless.
Yeah, and this is a rare instance in this movie where I feel like the framing and kind of the composition of the shot is pretty Bush League. For the most part, this movie's expertly handled, but this is a shot of Tommy coming down the stairs from the side, and then almost intending to shock us, Rob and Trish enter the frame from the left-hand side of the screen, and Tommy would have seen them coming through the door, so there's no reason for him to be afraid of them. But because the audience can't see who's coming into frame, we're supposed to be startled by it. And it's a little bit cheap, and it feels rushed.
Yeah, they just kind of appear, and they somehow try to make that seem like it's a scare, but it just doesn't make sense when you think about what's going on. So Rob and Trish are, relieved that Tommy's okay, because if we remember, they were back at their campsite when they realized that they had
forgotten about Tommy.
Basically forgotten about the 10-year-old kid back at the house. And so, he's okay, but now they're also kind of freaking out because they still haven't found Mrs. Jarvis.
Right. And they're worried about the kids next door because, with the power out, and Rob knows something bad's up. So he and Trish head next door, and they take Gordon with them. Gordon being the dog, the Jarvis family dog. And I'm not really sure why they bring him along. It's not like he's a vicious attack dog or something. I feel like the worst he would do is hump Jason's leg or something. But he goes with them. And one thing I really like as they approach the party house is you can see the flickering of the movie projector through the window.
Yeah, that is nice.
I liked that a lot. That was nice and creepy.
They also see the hole in the front door from the axe that Jason threw through it to kill Sarah just recently.
Yeah, it's pretty clear immediately that something is amiss.
They don't see it that way because they're like, well, we better go inside.
Yeah, we better go down to the basement.
I walk up to that house and I'd be like, nope, and I'm turning around and I'm heading back to my house.
Totally. But I mean, remember, Rob is on a mission. This is a guy who knows what he's, thinks he knows what he's getting into.
That's true. He does have, 3 days of pent-up anger since his,
Exactly.
sister has been dead. She may not even be buried yet, but he's already on the mission.
Right. And remember, he's read a couple of newspaper clippings, so he's got all the information he needs.
That's true.
But I gotta say, they make it, they discover pretty immediately that the house is mostly empty. The one place they haven't yet checked is the basement, and Rob, with balls of steel, heads down there to take a look. Would you ever go into that basement knowing that more likely than not, Jason is down there?
No, I mean, as a rule, I typically don't go into unfinished basements of any house, regardless of what the situation is. But, I mean, there's been plenty of warning signs before they even walked in the door of this place that something is amiss. And yet they feel the need to go downstairs. And I'll give them a little bit of credit because there are some things missing here. Like, when they walk through the family room of the house, they somehow see no evidence that Ted was just killed there.
Right.
They walk through the kitchen and somehow see no evidence that Jimmy was just killed there.
Jason's really good at cleaning up.
Yeah, so he's a neat freak, but, so you can say, okay, the door is damaged for some random reason, we're still going to go inside. So it's not like they walked in and there's just blood everywhere.
Right.
But no, I would not go in that basement.
No, I mean, best case scenario, you're going to find Mike from the Blair Witch Project standing in the corner. Worst case scenario, you're going to find Jason down there, or he's going to find you.
But when they head down to the basement, Gordon's the only smart one because he sees something that scares him and immediately whimpers his way upstairs and commits an act of self-inflicted defenestration where he just jumps out the window of the second floor window.
I don't understand this at all.
No, like, I have a dog. I've seen her get scared, but running up 2 flights of stairs and then jumping out a window is not something that she would ever do.
He goes headlong through a second-story window without having seen anything. It's almost like he has some sort of dog sense that Jason's in the basement. So does this kill Gordon? or does Gordon get away? Like,
I don't know, but I also don't know. Like, he runs up from the basement. Why not run out the front door that they just walked through?
Exactly.
Like, why did
Go
he need
all the way
the
upstairs.
jumping start from upstairs? It's really, really strange.
yeah, it's bizarre. And,
And
I also wonder, like, was there a stunt dog? Like, did the ASPCA monitor the animal handling in this movie? It's bananas.
Maybe he was just looking for an excuse to get away from the Jarvis family.
Maybe he thought there might be some tits outside, and he wanted to go.
The
I better get out there right away. Back at Castle Jarvis, unaware that any of this is going on next door, Tommy begins rooting around in Rob's rucksack and discovers his dossier of Jason facts. At one point, Jason apparently attacked a cafe, according to one of the newspaper headlines. Like, was he pissed because they got his order wrong, or...
I think that might have been Harold and Edna, because it says cafe owner and wife found slain. And so the only thing that I can think of that we had seen, because we could never figure out what that place was, cafe was not one of the 7 things that we speculated about.
Right.
But I guess the journalists figured that's what it was. It was
That's
a
the
cafe.
best way they could summarize what the hell this establishment was. Like Harold's Choo Choo Cafe or
The
something.
cafe with fish food and donettis and
And groceries and...
right. The one thing I love these headlines just about how simplistic they were, but it got me wondering what these headlines would look like today in our clickbait culture. So you have body of Friday the 13th murderer missing, and you won't believe what happens next. Body of Friday the 13th murderer missing, and we're totally freaking out. Massacre at Camp Crystal Lake leaves 1 survivor. What she said to police will shake you to your core. Cafe owner and wife found slain, and we're not crying, you're crying. Crystal Lake Massacre. What police saw will leave you in tears. Only people with an IQ over 160 know where the missing body of the Friday the 13th murderer is. Are you one of them? Do you know how Jason is going to murder you? 90% of people gave the wrong answer. Is Jason outside your window? He is if you find these 5 body parts in your fridge. And lastly, 9 ways Jason has killed his victims. Number 4 is amazing.
Or how to get your dick bigger for a shower makeout session. Click here. While Rob is scoping things out in the dark, scary basement, Trish kind of wanders around the rest of the house and goes upstairs to find that Doug has been pulled out of the shower stall and pinned face first to the tile wall with what looks like a railroad spike. I'm not sure why Jason would have done that. We know he moves bodies around. We know he likes to stage his scenes. We obviously know that he cleans up. But yeah, it's a curious tactic for him. He did it once before with Sandra's boyfriend Jeff. After he impaled him in the bed, he then stuck Jeff on a coat hook on the wall behind the door. But this was just super mean. It's like he really did not like Doug for some reason.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to move you a few feet and then I'm just going to impale you to this wall.
Yeah.
It was, just unnecessary.
This understandably panics Trish, and she runs back down screaming, "Rob, he's here! He's here!" Which, of course, Rob already suspected, but I did like the sinister kind of unstoppable force is here, we can't do anything about it tone in her panic.
And I feel like we've gone up and down these stairs like 30 times in the last 10 minutes, but Rob and Trish run back upstairs from the basement. But as they're doing that, one of the stairs breaks and Rob gets stuck. And once he gets free, he turns around and runs back down into the basement. So like they were just trying to get up or get out, and he gets stuck and then turns around and goes back down. So I have no idea. I don't think any of them know what they're doing. We've got dogs jumping out of second-story windows. We've got people running up and down stairs blindly.
I kind of feel like that it was a little bit garbled, and I might be reading too much into it, but I sort of feel like Rob took that as the stair had been booby-trapped. And so he went back downstairs to try to hold Jason off to give Trish time to get away. So it was a little bit of an act of heroism on his part.
That could be. Yeah, I could see that.
And as soon as he reaches the ground level of the basement, Jason appears, and begins viciously attacking Rob with what appears to be a garden claw,
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
which doesn't do a lot of damage at once, but he
Not
just
quickly,
savagely just tears at him. It's not very graphic because it's dark and you can't see what's going on, but this is probably the most horrifying kill of the entire series.
Yeah, because it's going to take a while, and it's so prolonged that Rob even has the chance to say, "Run, run! He's killing me! He's killing me!" Like he knows that it's coming, but he's not in such bad shape that he can't explain what's going on.
Right.
So it's very just drawn
It's
out.
haunting. Apparently, that was a little bit of improv on the actor's part, and it's genius because it turns what would otherwise be a really forgettable kill into one of the most memorable kills, certainly of this movie and possibly of the whole series.
And then in another instance of indecisiveness, Trish starts to run away, per Rob's instructions, but then she runs back down in the basement just to kind of confirm. And that's when she sees that Rob is dead. And then she heads back upstairs again. And Jason reaches through the broken step, underneath the stairs and grabs her by the ankle.
Yeah, it sort of wastes Rob's sacrifice. He was, whether he meant to or not, he was giving her time to get away, and she rather foolishly goes back downstairs to check on him, which, okay, she was concerned about her new friend, but still that kind of takes away any head start he was trying to give her. Rob was played by Eric Anderson, who appeared in Missing in Action, which was directed also by Joseph Zito. Showed up on an episode of House MD and Star Trek The Next Generation. He's still working steadily on TV. He's got credits all over the place. So he's one of those guys where I feel like I've absolutely seen him and just not even realized that it was him. But now that I know he's still showing up, I'll keep my eyes peeled.
He also played Felicity's father on the TV show Felicity.
I'll be damned. The damage report on Jason begins here officially because as he grabs Trish through the stairs of the cellar, she starts hitting him on the arm with the machete. So he's taking some hits here. This is where she tries to turn the tables, and Jason starts taking some smacks.
After Trish chops away at Jason's arm with the machete, she runs out the front door, and Tina's body is laying on the front doorstep, which I don't know how she got there because they came in the front door, right?
Yeah, and Jason was down in the basement the whole time, so he couldn't have moved it
and
there.
Now the body's there, so I don't know. Maybe Gordon threw it out the window before he jumped out.
Gordon dislodged it when he landed on the ground. It ricocheted, it
Right.
propelled Tina's body into the space in front of the door.
But, she makes it 2 feet outside before seeing Tina's body, freaks out, and then, of course, she runs back in. And that's where she finds Jimmy nailed to the door frame, which is really kind
she
of
runs
grim.
to the back door.
Yeah.
And he's pinned up across the doorway, blocking her path.
Basically crucified to the door frame, and it's just really just gruesome.
It's vicious. So she winds up going out the kitchen window and runs back to her house across the way, scampering inside and then slamming the door shut, panicking Tommy, and she begins hammering the door jamb with some nails to try to secure the door.
Despite the fact that the room is 95% windows and they're nailing the door shut. But
Yeah, it's not the best tactic, but it's better than nothing. Meanwhile, Jason has come up from the basement, charging through the back door, tearing through Crispin Glover's hands.
I love this because he basically, Jimbo is eye level with Jason. And so Jason, when he gets to the door frame, Jimbo's in his way, and he basically puts his hand on Jimbo's shoulders and just yanks him down to the ground. So just ripping the nails right through his hand and just throwing him to the ground. And it's so gross, but it's so great.
It's so efficient. Jason has no fucks to give. He is on a mission, and he does not want anything in his way.
Now Trish is running around the house locking all the windows because, that's going to stop Jason. And before she's even close to being done doing that, Rob's body comes flying through one of the windows that she just locked, which proves my point that locking the windows isn't going to do any good.
Good. Jason, he's good at hurling people through windows just like his mother was. It also looks as though Rob may have something rammed into the side of his head, but it was a little bit hard to see for sure. Jason seems to be making good use of railroad spikes in this movie, so I feel like that might be what it is, but it's hard to tell.
For some reason, Trish decides to get a closer look of Rob's body that just came flying through the window. She pretty much gets confirmation that he's dead. And just as she's doing that, Jason crashes through the window and grabs Tommy, trying to pull him back outside of the house.
Yeah, Tommy's back is to the window and Jason smashes through, which apparently scared the shit out of Corey Feldman while they were filming. He knew it was coming, but he didn't know exactly when. And so Tommy's screams of, let me go, are real. That's not acting. That's actually Corey Feldman reacting.
Yeah, it sounds like it's similar to the window pull that they did in part 2 with Ginny, where they told her they're going to do it on the count of 3, and then they go 1, 2, 3, and then they would just wait and wait and wait, and nothing would happen, and then the actor would kind of relax for a second and think nothing's going on, and then suddenly out of nowhere the person jumps through and you get like
so
that
mean.
Real scare reaction. But yeah,
so mean.
That would scare the shit out of me.
Trish immediately goes on the defensive and just takes the hammer that she's been using to nail the door shut and goes to town on Jason's head.
There's some great sound design here because it's the metal hammer hitting the plastic of the hockey mask, and it's just like clack, 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 but it's really just forceful, and it still hurts. Like the hockey mask is going to provide some protection, but it's still like it's got to hurt. And she's just like repeatedly like bop, 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 bop.
There's a little bit of like you say, there's thack, thack, but then there's also a little bit of thunk, thunk, like so you can tell that she's also hitting the meat underneath the mask. And that's a great place for this moment, this segment to end, because this is the best. Pretty heavy kill count this segment. We've got 4. Ted is stabbed through the back of the head. Doug is smashed in the shower. Sarah is taken down by an axe through the door, and Rob is hauntingly clawed to pieces in the basement.
This is a damn good chunk.
Yeah, this is right here. This is what I think of when I think of Friday the 13th.
Well, what do you say we wrap this up and get to the next chunk?
I agree. Let's do it.
All right. Well, I've been Brian.
I've been Greg.
And you're all doomed.
Yes, you are.